Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. Happy Thursday. Chilly morning here in Michigan. Fall is here. 50 degrees at night in the morning, 80 degrees in the day. Classic Michigan weather. Today we're going to talk about stuff no one likes to talk about because as physical therapists, we're kind of naturally touchy-feely, empathic people. So we're going to talk about hiring and firing today. Not when or why you should do that, but kind of those transition points between when somebody is coming on board and someone else is leaving, whether through you asking them to leave or through their own will because they are seeking out a different position elsewhere. So, traditionally there's the 2 weeks notice. When that person comes to you, sometimes we get desperate, sometimes we get angry, sometimes we try to negotiate. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's talk too much, we'll start with that point where someone is leaving your company, whether on their terms or your terms. What's common now, especially in tech industries and even larger companies, hospital-based corporations, is when that person puts in their 2 weeks notice, they usually get fired that minute and escorted out. And this is maybe a misplaced belief that they will shoot up your place of employment or something like that, or just have a negative reaction. And so now a lot of people either will not give 2 weeks, have already secured a position, or are just expecting to be fired at that point because that's what a lot of places of employment are doing now. That person says, I'd like to put in my 2 weeks notice, I found employment elsewhere, and they're fired immediately and they leave that day, which is a huge detriment to that organization and just dumb, just poor leadership. That transition point, that 2 weeks, is where your success is made, or where you just have a really rough transition that can affect your organization for weeks, months, years. What we often see in organizations is somebody in a key role leaves, and the transition is rough, and kind of revenue, efficiency, everything just kind of slowly takes a nosedive and then recovers. And that bottomed out part, that U-shaped graph, can be weeks, months, or years, which is not something we want at all. If somebody were to come to me and put in their 2 weeks, I would actually say, hey, can you give me a month? And not a lot of people would consider that, but that transition point is crucial to hand off all of the stuff that person does. And I want to talk a little bit about my experience with the military with a concept we started to integrate in Iraq and Afghanistan called left seat, right seat riding. So traditionally, when the military goes to war, the whole military went to war, right? World wars, everyone goes, no one stays home. And what we started to see in Vietnam is that units were made up of individual service members, and when their contract ended, they just went home and they were replaced, right? A replacement. And that went okay, right? Having one person in a big group leave is not too detrimental. Now, moving forward from Vietnam, we started to see companies, battalions, small to medium-sized units come in and out of a combat zone at once. And in the beginning of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, what we saw is that the unit that was already responsible for an area just left as soon as the replacing unit got there, right? Hey, we've been here 15 months. Glad to see you. Here's the keys. Have a good time. We're out of here. And that doesn't go well, right? That sounds similar to when somebody puts in their 2 weeks or just quits and you don't have any transition point. So we started to implement something across the entire, at least I can speak for the Army, called left seat, right seat riding, where some portion of the incoming unit comes and sees what the current unit is doing, what they're responsible for, what sort of stuff they are doing, and learns what's working, what's not, goes back to their unit, and starts to prepare for that transition, right? A lot of preparation, a lot of training during the transition point makes the transition that much easier. Once the replacing unit arrives, one person from the replacing unit would ride along on patrols with the current unit and slowly transition until the only person left on that patrol was a person from the old unit. So left seat to right seat riding. You transition that that all that work, all that knowledge slowly over time, often over the course of a month or 2 months. And those slow, easy transitions are what make for successful transitions. We had a saying in the Army, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So slow might not be our speed, but if we go slow and it's a smooth transition, then it's fast because we don't see that U-shaped dip in, at least in the business world, things like revenue and overall company efficiency. There's an important thing there too, is that once you take over from someone else and they leave, you no longer have the chance to ask questions. You no longer have the chance to make changes because you're in that right seat now, right? So slow is smooth, smooth is fast, left seat, right seat riding. So when that person comes, and I'm thinking of a personal example here of a really rough transition we've had over the past couple months in the clinic where I practice now, is that front desk wise, admin wise, you may not know what's going on, but you should have that person make a checklist of things they do daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. Because if you're practicing decentralized command and you don't know 100% of what they do, you should have them write down what they do and keep that somewhere so that if they ever decide to move on, or you decide they're no longer a good fit, you have an idea of what's supposed to go on there. And ideally, you would hire their replacement and they would have a slow 2 to 4 week transition with the person that they are replacing. And so once that month period is over, they are in place, ready to go. And when that doesn't happen, things usually go very wrong. I realize that my seatbelt makes me look like Elton John a bit with an earring here, but I swear it's not an earring. So long, slow transition. And when this doesn't happen, this is why turnover is so costly. People often can't explain why high turnover is costly. This is why. Because there's that drop in efficiency as the new person is trying to desperately pick up the slack from the person they're replacing, and it doesn't go well. So checklists, we're kind of averse to checklists, just like we are to firing people as physical therapists. We don't like a one-size-fits-all type checklist, which makes sense for patient care, but for things like your front desk makes total sense, right? Have a checklist manifesto. Atul Gawande revolutionized the airline industry, and is now why our surgical outcomes are starting to bump back up because of checklists, right? If you're not sure what goes on, have somebody make a checklist of what they do. So here we just went through a poor transition in front desk, both a desperate hire and not a good fit, and combined with a poor transition was disastrous, right? If we look at the numbers for this year, just quality, quantity of everything, we will definitely see that U-shaped dip. I have no doubt about it because of a poor transition. And now going through another transition and doing it right this time, a nice, long, smooth transition. And that might look like asking the person that's leaving, hey, can you stay a month instead of 2 weeks? Or, hey, can I pay you $500 to come in on Saturday and train the new person for the next couple weeks, just to be sure that they have it? Because it may cost more on the front end, but it's going to pay off in the back end, I guarantee you. The more trained that person is, the more they have the routine down, the more they know what's expected of them and what they need to do, the better off that transition is going to be. When somebody comes up and puts in their 2 weeks and you fire them, you lose all of that. Or when you don't pick up the slack and get somebody in there soon enough to train and have a nice transition, you lose all of that potential. Patrick, I'm seeing your question right now. What if the front desk just ups and leaves? Clinic where my wife works has been having huge problem keeping someone. Yeah, so great example of why there needs to be a ton of checklists for that position if that turnover is high. And we can dig deeper into why turnover is high there. Is it culture? Is it pay? Is it benefits? You can certainly negotiate with the person quitting to try and keep them there, pay them more. But we've talked before about subjective well-being. The vast majority of people don't like their job, and a third of them are actively looking for another one while currently employed. So you can try to negotiate with that person, but it's likely that if you do get them to stay, that they're just going to keep looking for something even better, and you'll be having the same conversation 6 to 12 months from now. So definitely, Patrick, if there's a high turnover at that position, that's a place where you need a ton of checklists of what's going on, because if the transition is constantly happening and a new person is jumping into that role, they need to be able to cover down, as we would say, and get up to speed quite quickly. I hope that makes sense. And maybe that's why the turnover is high. If you are kind of drinking out of a fire hose at a new position, I think we've all been there, right? It's not fun, and it makes you second guess taking that position in the first place, right? So definitely a spot where you need a lot of checklists and a lot of just information on what to do and what to expect. So left seat, right seat ride, long, smooth, slow transitions. Yeah, Jeremy, I see your comment. I figured this would all make sense to you. I'm talking similar vernacular here. So left seat, right seat ride, long, smooth transitions. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If somebody is leaving, certainly try to find out why. You can try and get them to stay, but understand that they've kind of already made up their mind, and that the best possible thing you can do is make that a smooth transition by having them train their replacement as best as they possibly can. And that might look like coming in on Saturday and Sunday, paying them extra, having them stay late. Initial higher upfront cost at that transition will save you money in the long run. And then checklists, especially for jobs that are kind of routine. Here's what you do when you come in the morning. These are the things you do. Here are the things you do throughout the day. Here are the things you have to do at lunch. Here are the things you have to do before you leave for the night. Here are things that are due weekly, monthly, yearly, every 5 years. Just checklists to ensure a smooth transition. That helps the new person build up habit and routine as well. Eventually, ideally, they won't need those checklists every day, but getting them to move through those checklists, understanding what's expected, will help them get up to speed quicker and get that role back to where you want it, wherever it's at in your company. So try those things out. Love talking this stuff with you all. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them on here. Email me, info@ice.physio. You can certainly reach out to me on Twitter. I don't really check Twitter, but you can do that too. Upcoming courses, Virtual Ice just started our next cohort. Awesome kickoff to Virtual Ice Tuesday with Jeff talking about sleep and pain. Next weekend, busy weekend. Eric Chaconis will be up in Minneapolis for extremity management. Jessica Davis will be in Las Vegas for performing artist management. Don't miss that one. Jessica is an absolute pleasure to learn from. One of the nicest human beings I've ever met. Top-notch clinician, really knows what she's talking about with performing artists, with dancers. That same weekend, Monitor Management Older Adult Live kicks off its next cohort, 8-week online cohort, with Dustin Jones and Christina Previtt. Rising Tide next weekend, September 28th through the 30th, down in Albuquerque. Still time to grab a ticket and grab a hotel for that one. And then Fitness Athlete, got to rep Fitness Athlete as I'm now part of the Fitness Athlete division. Advanced Concepts, our 8-week online course with Mitch and Zach, starts October 1st. That one's getting close to filling up. Don't miss that one. And then 2 chances, same weekend, to catch Mitch, Zach, and I out on the road for Fitness Athlete Live. Zach will be in Phoenix on October 13th and 14th, and Mitch and I will be down in Argyle, Texas, just outside of Dallas, same weekend, October 13th and 14th. So busy couple of weeks, next 2 months or so for us. Lots of courses every weekend, lots of online courses to jump into. Jump in now before we slow down a little bit in the December time frame for the holidays. So if you're thinking about jumping into one of these courses live or online, do so before the holidays, before the start of the new year. So that's it for me. Have a wonderful Thursday. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you all in a couple of weeks. Bye.